Okay, we hereby call the Iberia Parish Council council agenda for September 26 to order. It is now 6:02. Mr. Ricky, you want to give us the prayer?
In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I will say, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Ms. Broussard, the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Tommy Pollard. Here. Michael Landry. Here. Tommy Landry. Here. Lloyd Brown. Here. Warren Goshenson. Here. Natalie Broussard. Here. Paul Landry.
Here.
Ricky Gosselin.
Here.
Joe Duca. Here. Eugene Olivier. Here. Brian Napier.
Here.
Murray Francis. Here. Marty Traha.
Here.
Chad Mottram.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum here. Now we need a motion and a second for public comments. We have a motion by Mr. Pollard, a second by Mr. Brown. Roll call. Eugene.
Eugene.
Okay, now we're in public comments. Item number 1, comments from the general public on non-agenda items. A, Ms. Sharon Russo with Shes Hope Incorporated to address the council regarding National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Ms. Sharon?
Good evening, Council, Madam President. October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We have several events planned in recognition of that. The first is next week, from tonight, we're having a unity reception. Normally, I go around to the different councils and stuff, and we do different proclamations, but this year, we're making one proclamation, gathering all of the mayors from Iberia Parish, parish president, to come together at the reception to sign the proclamation and read it, and then we're going to honor law enforcement, giving out Helping Hands awards to those law enforcement officers that helped us out last year. So that's next week at 3 o'clock Wednesday. I gave y'all all some flyers too on all the different events that we have. 3 o'clock at the City Hall Plaza. We're also within the month of October, on October 24th, is National Unity Day. And that's a day that's being recognized to come against bullying. So we're putting on a bully-free rally. This is the first time we've ever done it. And that's going to be Tuesday, October 23rd at the Steamboat Pavilion. I really want to encourage you to come. You know, if you have children or grandchildren, school age, bring them. We want the kids. I'm going to go out to the schools and try to get the schools to participate. They're going to actually do the program. So it's a good cause. You know, bullying is a huge problem these days, and so I encourage you to come to that. And then our last event is October 25th. That's a Thursday night of the same week at Steamboat Pavilion. We're having our candlelight vigil that evening. So we're going to also, the fountain at City Hall, they're turning it purple in recognition of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So October 25th, the day of our vigil, we want to paint the town purple. We're encouraging everyone that day to wear purple. Wear purple at work. I'm going to try to get the schools, see if they'll participate, wear purple. We're going to put out purple bows on the businesses, and we just want to paint the town purple in recognition of domestic violence and taking a stand against it. So I hope to see y'all there.
We'll try to
Any
be
questions?
there. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Sharon? Sharon, I want to thank you very much for what y'all do.
Thank y'all. Y'all have
Yeah,
a good evening.
Thank you. Okay, now we're on to item number 2, comments from the general public on agenda items. A, persons to be considered for appointment to the parish boards, commissions to address the council. The first person we have is Mr. Raymond Bernard with the item 169. I believe that's going to be the airport board. Yes, sir. Mr. Raymond? And just a reminder, new speakers, we do have a 3-minute limit.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you to the council. Good evening. I'd like to introduce myself, Raymond Bernard Jr. I'm a lifelong resident of Iberia Parish and the city of New Iberia. I'd like to thank you for your time this evening to hear my comments regarding the upcoming airport board. I've reached out to most of all of you guys. I got to speak to a lot of you. The others I left messages for. I did put a business card in front of each person's place for you to reach out to me if you have any questions regarding this. I am the president of Aviation Exteriors Louisiana, better known as AVEX. We occupy 3 wide-body hangars at the airport. So we are a tenant of the airport, and we're in the business of painting aircraft exteriors. I'm interested in the upcoming vacancy on the airport board. I think I bring to the table an understanding not only of general aviation, but of the wide body, the airlines, what's known as the heavy metal in the aviation industry. Much of the funding that the airport has gotten is as a result of a company like AVEX, where you've upgraded the runways, the taxiways, the aprons and whatnot, is as a result of the needs of wide-body aircraft. I understand, again, the needs of the wide-body aircraft and those operators that operate them. AVEX has been in business for 25-plus years. I ask for your consideration for this seat on the board, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Raymond.
Okay, thank you.
Next person up is Mr. Ryan Bourne. Ryan.
Good evening, everyone. Good to see you here tonight. I kind of introduced myself last week or 2 weeks ago, and have spoken or left messages with most everyone. Just wanted to kind of come back and put my name up there and get out in front of it. And I've had a couple of lots of good questions. I've had several of the members ask about potential conflicts of interest and things like that, and just wanted to kind of address that specific area for me. So I obviously work with Bristow. We're tenants at the airport. We do a lot of business with and at and involved with the airport. But personally, I'm just an employee. I'm my job title is regional sales manager, but that's a line level manager, not an officer of the company. I'm not directly involved in the decision-making process of, do we want to rent this or do we want to lease that? I don't have any visibility over the leases, and obviously in subjects concerning Bristow, I would happily recuse myself of that particular topic and let the board members deal with that. I've been with Bristow for 12 years and in aviation for 17. I'm a business development person and in the oil field, and I think those 3 things don't necessarily conflict with the interest of the airport. They make me uniquely qualified to help and participate with the airport. So given that, I'll just leave that with you, and if you have any questions, you know how to get in touch with me, and I look forward to visiting with you if need be.
Thank you, Mr. Bourne. Next up will be Mr. Bourne. We have one question for you, Mr. Brown here.
Mr. Bulk, you said that it wasn't a conflict of for you to be on the board.
Yes, sir.
And how did you come to that decision?
Well, being, and I think anybody in my situation, I would hope would do the same thing. If there's a particular subject that has to do with, something that would benefit me or the company that I work for, whether that be privately or professionally, you would recuse yourself from that aspect of the decision-making process and let the rest of the board members make the best decision for the authority, and that's just
Was that your decision or the ethics decision?
I don't know of any board that told me to say that or anything like that. I'm just thinking that
You was doing it on your own?
basic business ethics say that
Okay.
when you're in a
I
situation,
got you.
Thank
you.
But
All right, I'm done.
Are we gonna debate that now or wait till later?
Wait. Okay, next up, we have Mr. Bart Broussard also for the Airport Commission.
Good evening, Bart Broussard. I am a lifelong resident of Iberia Parish, as the other guys. I've been here all my life. I left after college and went to Orlando, Florida for 3 years and really liked it, worked at a real estate company. Wanted to raise my family here. I came back and met my wife, started a real estate company, sold it 8 years later to a big competitor in Lafayette, and that was called Banker Pelican. Worked for them for about 14 years doing commercial real estate. Last year they sold, so now I'm with another company out of New Orleans doing commercial real estate. I've always enjoyed the parish, and like a lot of you when I've called and talked to you, the airport is a diamond in the rough. There's a lot to be done out there. You have 2,200 acres, 1,200 acres or so you have some flexibility to do things with. I have developed in Iberia Parish a 23-acre tract that some of you approved years ago. I also did a 207-acre tract that I developed in the large residential tracts because the demand was there. And that went well, and I enjoyed the whole process of developing it. I see the upside in a lot of the airport and what could be done out there to generate more money. It's kind of, in some ways, a lot like the Port of Iberia and what they've done out there to generate tenants. One of the gentlemen I talked to on the council in my phone calls and conversations was a little concerned about competing with investors and taxpayers. And I totally understand that as someone who's developed and worked with taxpayers and investors. But there's also, I'm gonna call it the McDonald's and Burger King theory. When you start, those guys like to be next to each other. Your automobile dealers, they all like to be next to each other. They create energy and get momentum going, and others come into the game and add money to the table and add another product or a service so that investor can come in and develop and do things because that baseline is set, and others, the owner-occupant, can come in and buy. Smeda Industrial Park across from Baker Hughes on Highway 90, excellent development. St. Martin Parish government got involved and started it up. I just sold a building in there for $1.3 million. It's an owner-occupant from Iberia Parish that I think he would have been here in Iberia Parish if he'd had the product available to him. I think in the near future, the market is going to continue to get better. I think it's imperative and important that some infrastructure and some things are out there, and it is somewhat continue to be standalone and positive and an asset, and takes that next step so we can attract those guys as this market gets a little better. But I had a lot of other things to say, but I don't want to take up a lot of time with everybody here and what your agenda has. But my name is Bart Broussard. I'm open for any questions, or if you have any other thoughts for me, please holler. But, oh, by the way, I did, in calling y'all guys, I did get one phone call back from a voicemail, and 100% support, would totally vote for me. The only problem was he wasn't a council member and I had the wrong number. So, I felt good. It was one of those good, bad moments.
Bart, we do have one question with Mr. Traum. Okay. Oh, okay. Mr. Bernard, we have a question for you. Could you come back up?
We're accepting questions tonight. I didn't think we were asking questions tonight.
I didn't make any wrong phone calls, and I certainly hope this is not like being called to the principal's office. Yes, sir.
Mr. Bernard,
Yes,
would
sir.
you care to explain if you own percentage of AVEX? Could you explain that to us? That question has come up.
I did hear that in some of the conversations. I do not own any portion of Aviation Exteriors. I have an option to do that. We have not enacted on that proposal as of yet.
Okay.
Let's wait
Do
till
you intend on it or no?
Right now, things aren't financially feasible to do that.
Okay, thank you. That's all I
Okay,
have.
thank you, Mr. Strong. Next, we have up Mr. Eddie Crachan, who's reapplying for Sewer District Number 1.
Good afternoon.
Good
I
afternoon.
served one term on the Sewer District Number 1 board, and my time is up, and I'm interested in serving another term, and I appreciate if y'all consider me.
Thank you very, I was on the board with you, Mr. Eddie, and I know you asked a lot of good questions, so I appreciate your time and stepping up again.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, now we'll move on to reports, finance, and administrative action. Oh, I need a motion and a second to get out of public and go back to regular session. Okay, motion by Ms. Broussard, a second by Mr. Gonsalas. Roll call. Tommy. Okay, and we're back in regular session. Reports, finance, and administrative action, we have none. Reports, parish and other governmental agencies, that we have the monthly building report dated August of 2018. We have the Public Works Department report for closed works order dated September 3rd to 7th was in your packet. Public Works Department report for open work orders dated September 18th, 2018. At this time, we're going to go into the expansion, but before we do that, I'm going to have Mr. Ricky Gonsalas present a resolution to Mr. Miller here, who's in the audience, if Mr. Miller could stand up. And Ricky is one of his old 4-H boys from way back.
I was gonna ask you to come to the middle, but you're fine right there, Mr. Miller. Thank you for attending the meeting. We have a proclamation here on behalf of the Parish Council to recognize Mr. Charles Miller. It says the state of Louisiana, Parish of Iberia, this certificate is presented to Dr. Charles Miller in recognition of your unselfish dedication, devotion, and support of your lifetime work in the agriculture and sugarcane industry in Iberia Parish. In testimony we are have the hereto set our hands at New Iberia, Louisiana on this day, 26th day of September 2018, in recognition of your services to Iberia Parish and to congratulate you on your retirement. Hats off from me, the council, Iberia Parish.
Well, my home is truly here in Iberia Parish. I was raised here in Iberia Parish. I worked with Forest Grove members, farmers, and others throughout the years. People like him and many others around here I've worked with before. It's an honor to be able to live here in Iberia Parish. I'm a live here now. I still have a home here in Iberia, and I visit here quite frequently. I'm out of state now, but I have my heart still here with my old Cajun friends. It's a pleasure being here. It's nice to see all of you, and I wish the best of all of you. Thank you.
There was a nice reception at the Sugarcane Festival today from Mr. Miller. It was very well attended. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and, before special business, we're going to go ahead and work on the expansion that we had. The expansion number 1, discuss and consider a motion to expand the agenda to discuss and consider the following items. Executive session pursuant to LARS 42-17-2 for discussion of the employment of special counsel for litigation of an opioid case on behalf of Iberia Parish Government. Summary number 177, introduced by legal counsel, a resolution authorizing the employment of special counsel for litigation of an opioid case on behalf of Iberia Parish Government, all in accordance with sections 9-01, special counsel, and 9-02, legal counsel of Iberia Parish Home Rule Charter. The purpose of this expansion is to allow for the retention of special counsel for this matter that could be time sensitive. So at this point, I need a motion and a second to go into public hearing. I have a motion by Mr. Olivier, a second by Mr. Gonsalas. Roll call. Okay, that motion passes. We're now in public hearing. We'll accept any public comments from anybody that has any comments they would like to speak about. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and ask for a motion and a second to go back into regular session. I have a motion by Ms. Broussard, a second by Mr. Olivier. Roll call. Vote, Brian. The motion passes. We're now back in regular session. Now I need a motion and a second to expand the agenda, and we'll need the 14 votes. I have a motion by Mr. Olivier, a second by Mr. Pollard. Roll call. Okay, that motion passes. Next is motions to suspend the rules, as this item did not go to the executive committee meeting. I need a motion by Michael Landry, a second by Mr. Gosselin. Roll call. Morning. Okay, that motion passes. Now we're gonna need a motion and a second to vote on the item. Oh. Okay, yeah, Mr.
I don't believe there's a need to go into executive session. I reserve the right in case there are questions that might
This is what I saw.
require us to go into executive
I forgot
session.
that.
I believe that Mr. Young and his legal team are prepared to discuss it in an open session.
Just read this.
I have with me tonight Mr. John Young and his legal team. And they're here to talk about the opioid litigation. That's 3 PowerPoint presentations to show you that may give you some background information on the opioid litigation. You've seen it talked about on the newspapers and on TV and other places. Mr. Watney and I and Kerry Gladys and Chester Cedars talked to a number of different groups who were interested in that. Mr. Young and his group were selected to come here tonight for a couple of reasons. Number one is Mr. Young is a former parish president, and as a result, he has a unique knowledge of the damage model or damage matrix, if you will, of what a parish would have in connection with the opioid litigation. Of course, you know that's the opioid litigation is multi-district litigation, primarily taking place in Ohio regarding the abuse of opioid, especially in the way of appeals and other things. The second thing about Mr. Young and his team is that they have multiple clients in this litigation, but primarily a good number of those clients are parish governments, similar to what you have. The third thing that I wanted to point out to you was that early on when this was talked about, the parish presidents as well as the legal counsel for the different parishes, we all felt like that if we stuck together, we would be better off. Our 3 parishes work very well together. The parish presidents work very well together. And so Mr. Young and his team already have been contracted by St. Martin Parish Government as well as St. Mary Parish Government. And I ask him here tonight. Finally, before I turn it over to him, this is somewhat time sensitive. I would have perhaps liked to have taken this up in October. However, if you may know that in October of 2017 is when the president made a declaration of an opioid crisis, which is what we attorneys say put us on notice that there was a possible claim or cause of action. Many times causes of action in Louisiana, especially for tort and products liability, have a 1-year prescriptive period. And so I did not want to leave them in a position of they're bumping up against that, unduly bumping up against that period. So with that background in mind, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Young, and I think Mr. Richard may have.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Pass on to council that we've been discussing with many law firms for quite some time now. I'm going to say as far back as maybe 8-10 months ago. And I guess I've personally sat in on about maybe 6 or 8 conversations with different firms, as well as Guy Cormier when he was the parish president prior to the current parish president, Mr. Cedar, and also David Hannegriff in St. Mary Parish. So I think it's important that I make you very aware and make you truly understand that this isn't something that we as parish government or parish administration haven't been intimately involved in. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Richard. Mr. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, Mr. Parish President, and Andy, thank you for that kind introduction. As Andy said, my name is John Young. We've put together a highly experienced and highly skilled team of Louisiana attorneys to represent various parish governments and other municipalities and governmental entities in the opioid litigation. I have with me tonight Anthony Arpino and Mike Stagg, both of which have extensive experience as MDL lawyers. This is an MDL, a multi-district litigation. Everything that gets filed gets brought up to the Northern District of Ohio. So we have a lot of different bases covered in that regard. Just real briefly, and then I want to get into PowerPoint. I know you're busy and I can run through it fairly quickly, but as Andy said, I'm a practicing attorney, been involved in complex litigation for over 30 years, but in addition to my practice as an attorney, I've been an assistant district attorney in Jefferson Parish for 8 years. I was council chairman and councilman at large in Jefferson Parish. For 2 terms and parish president for 2 terms. I've been through Katrina, Rita, Gustav, Ike, the BPR spill, Tropical Storm Lee, and Hurricane Isaac, and also have sat on the executive board of the police jury for 8 years. So I've sat in your chair and had to make those decisions. And the reason we have gone after parish governments because you fund the ancillary services in your respective parishes. I want to tell you that we represent over a quarter of the state in parish governments, and that's not to brag or boast, but just to let you know that we've been vetted. We're approved by the Attorney General for the state of Louisiana. Our fee schedule is approved by the Attorney General, and the good news is it doesn't cost you any money. If we do not recover any money, you don't owe us a penny. All the risk is on us. We fund all the court costs. We get money back only if we recover on your behalf, with a sliding scale down fee schedule, again approved by the Attorney General, and then the cost that we incur if we recover. If we don't, you don't owe us a penny. As Andy said, this is time sensitive because with the president declaring a national state of emergency last October, we need to try to file something on your behalf before the end of October. Finally, I want to tell you as a former elected official that there's really no political downside to taking this action. In fact, I think the only political downside is not taking any action. There's bipartisan political support for suing the opioid manufacturers and distributors. On the national level, the Democrats and the Republicans are united on that. They're not united on much of anything. Even in our own state, we know the Attorney General and the governor don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, but they both agree that the opioid manufacturers and distributors need to be sued. They fought over who was going to control that litigation. That's been resolved. The Attorney General's controlling the litigation. And I think the biggest downside is not doing anything. So with that, I would like to go through the PowerPoint, if we could switch it on to. While she's doing that, I'll skip to the back end and tell you what we're looking to recover on your behalf. In broad brushstrokes, what we're looking to recover on your behalf are the expenses that you've incurred. And we want to go back to the 1990s, and we think we can because of the fraud involved in this case. And the one thing I want to leave you with, this crisis did not happen by accident. The manufacturing distributors intentionally marketed opioids as safe and effective for chronic pain and said that was not addictive. That was not true, and we have the evidence to prove that. Well, so what we want to do is make you whole for the costs you've incurred, because what's happened is the opioid manufacturers and distributors have made billions of dollars with a B, and they have strapped local, state, and the federal government with the cost. And ultimately, our citizens, our taxpayers have been strapped with the cost, where they have run off with all the profits. The second thing we want to do is get an injunction to prevent the opioid manufacturing distributors from continuing their fraudulent marketing campaigns. And third, as a former prosecutor, what appeals to me is similar to the tobacco litigation, get a cessation fund funded at each parish level so that it would provide monies for you to provide treatment for your citizens who have become addicted to opioids, or in some cases, when they're cut off of opioids, get addicted to heroin and other drugs. So I think we have the slide set up. So here's the opioid crisis. It goes back, as I said, to the 1990s, where the companies sold it as safe and effective for chronic pain. Opioids have a use in our society, and it's useful for people who have undergone surgery and are acute pain, and it's useful for cancer patients who are dying. But it's not safe and effective for chronic pain. Each one of y'all may know someone. I used to work with an assistant DA whose father was a federal judge. He got in an automobile accident. He got addicted to opioids and ended up dying from an overdose. It cuts across all socioeconomic lines. So since 1999, the number of opioid overdoses have quadrupled, and that's in direct correlation to the number of prescriptions of opioids. They have quadrupled as well. The CDC says it's one of the top 5 health threats in the United States. As we talked about earlier, there's been a presidential declaration of a public health emergency. And here's an interesting stat. 4 out of 5 new heroin users in the United States start out after first using prescription opioids. And every day, over 115 Americans lose their lives to opioid overdose. If you look at this chart, it just clearly shows you how many deaths from opioid, and then heroin is a distant second. 1 in 4 people who take opioids become addicted to opioids. And over 1,000 people a day are seen in the emergency room throughout the United States of America because of opioid overdose-related issues. Let's talk about opioids in Louisiana. Unfortunately, again, we're at the top of a bad list. Louisiana is in the top tier of states with a serious opioid crisis. In fact, we have more prescriptions than we have people. We have 122 prescriptions per 100 people in the state of Louisiana. We have a 39% higher opioid prescription claim average compared to the rest of the nation. Obviously, urban areas have a bigger problem because there are more people, but rural areas are stretched because they don't have the resources to deal with it. Overdose deaths across Louisiana outnumbered homicides for the first time in 2016. That's an interesting statistic. Schools in Louisiana are now required to include an opioid-specific component in substance abuse prevention instruction. It cuts across, again, all socioeconomic lines, and I don't want anybody to raise a hand, but I'm sure you have friends, relatives, or know someone who's had an opioid prescription problem. This is a chart that just shows you that the states in deep purple are the ones with a higher incidence of opioid abuse and overdose, and again, Louisiana is in that number. Fraudulent marketing campaign. Again, as I said earlier, this didn't happen by accident. The companies, the manufacturers and distributors spent millions of dollars promoting the safe use of opioids for chronic pain. They promoted the concept of pseudo-addiction. When somebody came in and said they were addicted to opioids, the manufacturing distributors sent out information that said prescribe more opioids. One of the insidious things they did is they targeted the elderly and our veterans coming back from battle. So they targeted both the elderly and our veterans. They targeted doctors to present the opioids as safe and effective. What they did was they set up doctors and funded the doctors and made them key opinion leaders, and they went out to other doctors, their colleagues, and said it was safe to do. The other thing they did is they set up so-called independent organizations with a name like the American Pain Society, which they completely funded, to go out and say it was safe and effective to prescribe opioids for chronic pain. I'm not going to get in the weeds on this, but this is a label that we think will prove the legal liability of the opioid manufacturers and distributors. And it's legalese, but it's the same thing with the Porter and Jick letter. Again, misrepresentation, fraudulent marketing campaigns. On this slide, you'll see the manufacturers on the left and the drugs that they manufacture on the right. So if you see Purdue, which is the leading producer of OxyContin, they're On the right is OxyContin. Endo has Percocet. Janssen, which is a division of Johnson & Johnson, Duragesic, Incest Subsys. Some more manufacturing companies, Mallinckrodt, fentanyl. Fentanyl is one of the strongest opioids, and both Prince, the entertainer, and Tom Petty both died of opioid overdoses, and specifically fentanyl. Then you have Depromed, you have Vicodin, and then we have the distributed defendants. And McKesson, as you see McKesson, when we first presented to the Executive Board of Police Jury Association last December on a Friday, that Sunday, 60 Minutes had a lead story on McKesson. McKesson is one of the bad actors on the distributor side. They sent more pills into a small town in Colorado than they had people. And they had ex-DEA, ex-DOJ officials on the interview for the 60 Minutes story who wanted to bring criminal charges against McKesson, but they had so much money up in D.C. through their lobbyists, they backed DOJ and DEA off. They eventually not pled, but they eventually worked out a deal where they paid a $100 million fine. Sounds like a lot of money. It is a lot of money, but not when you're making $150 million a month. So they got essentially a slap on the wrist. But McKesson's been in trouble several times. And these are the type of revenues they bring in. McKesson, $192 billion. Cardinal Health, another distributor, $122 billion. What's driving the crisis? Profits. It's all the money that's driving it. It generates $11 billion in revenue for the drug companies. They spent over $250 million in 2011 alone promoting the use of these drugs as safe and effective. It's the most prescribed class of drugs in the United States. 289 million prescriptions written per year in the United States. Give you an idea, the last census we had 323 million people in the United States. That's an extremely high percentage of people on prescribed opioids. And the cost of opioids are higher in the United States than anywhere else in the world. So they're making billions of dollars. And they're not dealing with any of the adverse consequences you are as a local government, and our taxpayers are footing the ultimate bill. Why the distributors? You may ask, well, why the distributors? Well, the distributors under federal law have an obligation to raise a red flag when because they can trace through a computerized system nationally called ARCOS, and at the state level through the PMP, we know where every pill goes. In fact, the judge in this case, who's a former prosecutor and is pushing this case very aggressively, has ordered the DEA to produce the records of the manufacturers and distributors that provide 95% of the medication in each state. You can trace that by computer. So the distributors know where the pills are going, and they're under a federal statutory obligation to report any unusual numbers of prescriptions, similar to what McKesson didn't do in that small town in Colorado. Just like the banks have the suspicious accounting reports, the SARs, they're supposed to report that. So they are under an obligation to do that, and they continuously failed in their duties to do that because they were seeking the profits. So they're exposed as well. Now, let's talk about, and I'm getting close to the end, dealing with the cost. The cost of dealing with the opioid dependency, as I've said, is pushed to the state, local government, and ultimately to the taxpayers. In Louisiana, it costs us $296 million per year in healthcare costs because of the opioid crisis. Impact on healthcare and hospitals and EMS, the cost of prescriptions, the treatment for overdoses. They now have a drug that can you can administer when people are dying from an overdose. And we've talked to various fire districts and personnel that said they go out and get the same person twice in one day because they'll revive them with Narcan and they'll come back because they're going back to the opioids. That's how strong the addiction is. Impact on law enforcement, criminal possession charges. Obviously, you as a parish government have to fund the DA's office, the judicial system. That cost is passed on to you and the taxpayers. That's what we want to recover on your behalf. Impact on the judicial system I talked about, impact on the medical examiner and coroner. One of the things our team is doing is we're not recommending. Now, if you have a strong desire to do so, obviously you would be the client, but we're not recommending suing local doctors and pharmacists. And the reason for that is they were duped as well. They were misled initially, and now that when they found out what's going on and they're cutting people off of opioids, that's why they're going to heroin. And 4 out of 5 new heroin users started on opioids. And again, just to underline why it doesn't discriminate, when the first lawsuit we filed in Louisiana, first federal lawsuit that was filed on behalf of parish in Louisiana was Bossier. And when we met with the parish attorney in Bossier, he asked that question because he said the OBGYN who had the largest practice in the parish of Bossier had become addicted to opioids. His whole staff had become addicted to opioids, and he's now in federal prison. So again, it doesn't discriminate, and it cuts across all socioeconomic lines. I already talked about this. Bipartisan political support, no political downside. The biggest political downside is not doing anything. I talked about the relief already, those three major issues when we were trying to work out the technical difficulties. Again, time is of essence. We would be honored to represent Iberia Parish. As I said, we represent over a quarter of the state. In addition to the parish governments, we represent municipalities, the Louisiana Assessors Association, statewide, self-insurance fund, and the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office, as well as North Caddo Hospital District. But with that, I know you have a lot on your plate tonight. Want to thank you again for the time and opportunity, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, first is Mr. Napier.
Surprise. Mr. Young, right?
Yes, sir.
I think we met back in 2015 at the dancing deal, right?
Right. I was one of the contestants.
So was I.
Right, right.
I thought, yeah. Okay. I think you.
That was a fun
you danced-
time.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
a fun time.
He beat me. He was a better dancer. No, so that was, man, that makes you, that throws you back with all that information.
Right.
So, so we don't have to put up a dime,
No.
nickel, and all. So whatever it is you retrieve, is it a certain percentage that
Yes.
that the law firm takes?
Yes, and like we're taking all the risks. We're gonna have to. We already have hired a forensic economic expert because obviously we have to track your specific costs. Each parish, we're gonna represent each parish. We're the principals. We're gonna be involved. So we're gonna be handling this case on your behalf. But to answer your question, normally on a case like this with the risk involved, we would normal rate would be about 40%. What we have done, and again, this is approved by the Attorney General, we charge 25% for the first 10 million. And if we recover between 10 and 20 million, it goes down to 20%. And if we recover above 20 million, then it goes down to 15%. Only recoverable and then any cost we have, if we spend $100,000, just for example, on experts, and for whatever reason we don't recover any money on behalf of Iberia Parish, you owe us nothing.
So
The only way you owe us any money is if we recover money on your behalf.
Right.
So that, like if and it's unlikely, but if we would again recover zero and we spend $100,000, you're not going to get a bill from us. It's not going to cost you a penny.
That's like a win-win.
Yeah, there's no downside on
Right. So and
on
just
your behalf.
Just a thought, and surely I am not. I'm not standing here for the pharmaceuticals, but so it's going to be sued. All of these companies are going to be. That's who y'all going after.
Yes, sir.
So is this obviously a nationwide?
Oh yes, sir. Yes, sir.
deal?
That's why all the cases that are filed are being sucked up into the Northern District of Ohio.
So just a thought, and could this cripple the pharmaceutical industry?
I don't think so.
I'm
I don't think so.
I mean, could we be in a bind later on down
they make a lot of money and they don't make as much as tobacco. But the tobacco litigation involved billions of dollars, and they're still doing well. In fact, the opioid manufacturers are taking a page out of the playbook of the tobacco companies
Okay.
and are moving to Europe right now because there's less regulation in Europe. But I mean, obviously, that's always an issue if they decide to try to file bankruptcy. But I don't see that as a probability.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it, Mr. Young. Thank you.
Any other questions? Any comments at this time by you?
No, I just asked them to come to make that presentation because we believe that, again, as Larry indicated, the presidents of the three parishes are working together. We've been working together with the council for the other parishes, and not only that, we believe that we negotiated the best, most attractive contingency rate possible. We had to do some arm twisting, but anyway, so it's my recommendation that you strongly consider retaining them to handle this litigation on your behalf.
Okay, we do have one more question, Ms.
I
Broussard.
have a question. I'd make the motion to hire them to
Okay.
represent us.
Okay, I have, Ms. Broussard made the motion. I have a second by Michael Landry. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Thank y'all very much. We look
Thank
forward
you.
to working with you, and it's an honor, privilege to represent Iberia Parish. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank y'all. Thank y'all.
Okay, now we'll move on to special business. Item number 1, presentation of the consolidated budget statement for the proposed 2019 budget. Mr. Richard or Ms. Kimberly?
What presentation? I'm sorry.
Placed at everyone's tables tonight. I had included the packet. So in accordance with the charter, the Iberia Parish Home Rule Charter, tonight we are presenting the consolidated budget for fiscal 19. So you have the president's budget message, which you can read. On your own. If you flip to following the signature page on the back side, the proposed consolidated budget, just to go through the totals, we're proposing total revenues of right at 50 million, kind of midway through the page, total expenditures of right at 70 million. So in excess of revenue, in excess of expenditures over revenues, right at about 20 million. And then we have transfers in and out. Beginning fund balance of 63 million and ending fund balance of 43 million. So just kind of like looking through it, you can see that we have $23 million worth of capital outlay type projects. That's the very last line item in the expenditure section. So capital outlay, and a lot of these are projects that we've been carrying forward through a number of years. So those are one-time expenses, which would contribute to the overall deficit. So I've also included the budget calendar in the packet and the listing of the funds and how we're going to go through them through the various committees. So we're going to start committee meetings on Monday. We've already given Brenda the information to prepare for the packet for Monday night's meeting. And then I've also included the debt schedule. So just to address assumptions that we've used in preparing the actual budget report. Property tax revenues were estimated based on a 95% assessed value from the 17 roll. So we're getting ready to assess the 18 roll, but we still don't have those numbers on the roll. So we actually use the prior roll. And more than likely those numbers are gonna be relatively similar. There may be, Ms. Turkey had indicated to Larry and I that there was an approximate 3% decline from those 17 valuation numbers. So the 3% and then a 2% uncollectability. So that's how I got to the 95% number. The sales taxes, we budgeted base flat. So if you recall, in 17's budgets, we adopted budgets with declining sales tax revenues, anywhere from 5% to 10% decline. In the projection, we're looking at our 18 numbers being about equal to, maybe slightly lower, but about equal to what we actually collected in 17, with the exception of the Economic Development District. The district, we'll see fluctuations anywhere from upwards to 20%. The next month might be down, 30%. So I've actually budgeted that particular fund with a 5% decline. So we have all of our grant revenues that we have known and awarded to date included in the budget document as well. And keep in mind too that we may need to correct some of those going forward into 19, just to make sure that we have the right amounts carried forward. relative to salaries and benefits, we have not included any any cost of living increases in any of the proposed budgets. There was a nominal increase, factor that was included on group insurance to provide for any changes at open enrollment relative to the employees. The retirement calculations were based on the actual plan contribution rate percentages. And so when we met with all of the departments, we had requested that they address their operating expenses and try to reduce as much as possible. And we also have all of the debt service requirements included in the operating budget. Anybody have any questions? Bless you.
Okay, no, so we will start Monday, October 1st with the Library, Trust Fund, Recreation, 16th Judicial, Disaster HUD, Texaco Royalty, Road Construction, Community Development, Risk Management, and Unemployment. So,
Yes, sir.
okay, so, no questions at this time? Thank you, Ms. Kimberly and the administration. We appreciate all y'all do.
I can wait till the end if you'd like to wait on that.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and skip item number 2 on for this executive session, so we can go ahead and move through for the rest of the people we're here. Okay, we have any council member announcements? Okay, Mr. Olivier.
I have one announcement. I would like to invite all the residents of District 10 to attend the Grand Matter Community Development Meeting on October the 4th, 2018, as well as any other people, residents in the unincorporated areas of the parish. At this meeting, our guest speaker would be Mr. Larry Reshaw, Parish President. He's going to share information about work being performed in our district, as well as upcoming financial concerns, and as well as services facing our parishes today and in the future. We will also have an open conversation about the road tax proposal election on November the 4th of this year. Of course, the community is invited. The meeting starts at 6 o'clock at Mon Ami in Grand Mary, 7304 Highway 90 East, Jeanerette. And try to invite your friends and whatnot to come by and share, some information with us. Thank you.
Mr. Gashasan.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to briefly announce again about the barbecue beef pulled pork fundraiser for the Ronella Fire Department. Will be held Sunday, November 4th, from 11 to 1, and ticket cost is $6.
And Mr. Gonsoulin.
Yeah, just a brief announcement. Mr. Napier is holding a sign that should be familiar to everybody in this community. One of the biggest economic engines in the parish in the sugar industry has started harvest as of today. And we want to let you know that our farmers and our millers are paying attention, and we want all the operators of motor vehicles on the road to pay attention to us, and we're going to provide a great and safe environment for you guys and an economic driver for this parish. So if you see this sign, pay attention, please. It says, Kane families care about your family. Please drive carefully.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, seeing none, we move on to parish president's announcements. Mr. Richard.
I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible. Yesterday we opened the bids for the new public works facility. The bids came back a little bit higher than what we wanted to see, so we're going to adjust a few things and go off the bid a little bit later on that. Last Saturday, we had the litter abatement program, where we went out into different areas, or different streets in the parish, and we're starting to pick up things like sulfurs, not only trash, and we got like 17 bags of trash we picked up on Megas Road and Hazard Road, but they have so many things in the ditches now, sulfurs and different types of appliance. So those are the types of things that we're starting to pick up now. Earlier, Dr. Miller was in here, and we read the certificate to him, but around 2 o'clock today, we had a major presentation that took place at the Sugarcane Festival building. We have a nice plaque, very similar to what you see on the wall right here by the Parish Council, is going to be placed in the Sugarcane Festival building in recognition to Dr. Charles Miller. And this plaque is basically going to say, in recognition of Dr. Charles Miller, County Agent, Regional Administrator from 1948 to 1999, for his dedication and devotion to the advancement of the agricultural community. This plaque is donated by the Iberia Sugarcane Advisory Committee. We put together a committee a while back with Donald Segura, Blair, Hebert, myself, and Dr. Todd Babineau. And this was a big, big deal for Dr. Miller. Dr. Miller is 94 years old. And the reason he's gone right now is because we had a lot that he did today. And I mean, he started this thing around maybe 1:45. And it's been going on and on all day long. So the reason I really wanted you, Paul, to get someone to read it quickly is because I could see that he was starting to maybe, he's 95 years old, so at any rate. So I just want to say this is a big deal for Dr. Miller, and we appreciate everything he did for Iberia Parish. One other thing I'll read right quick, like, is some of the work that's being done by Public Works, and I'm going to stop it because we have a lot of work to do this evening. But we're cleaning culverts in District 9, 10, and 13. We're picking up debris right now in District 10 and 11. We have some drainage field work being done in District 9 and 12. Some roadside drainage work being done in District 10 and 13, and road patching work being done in District 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, and 14. We have road repairs being done in District 5. Side booming, field ditches being done in District 8, and also side booming front ditches being done throughout the parish. I guess I'll stop because we can talk for a while, but I know we have a long evening, so I'll stop right there.
And Mr. Gushes?
Yeah, Mr. Richard, if I may, go back to the Public Works facility. Are you going to give us like a brief update of that, or how much it was overbid, or how much the bid came in at?
Yeah, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the bid came in, if I'm not mistaken, Warren, probably around, the lowest bid came in around 1.8, if I'm not mistaken. And we're trying to keep this around 1.2 something. So the game plan is to go back and look at what it is that we can change to get this building operational and do it in a cost-effective way for the people of Iberia Parish.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and one other announcement. I'd like to remind the community that this weekend is the Sugarcane Festival weekend, so if everybody could get out and, okay, Tommy Landry?
There seems to be a problem with mattresses on the side of the roads, and
You're right.
I want to thank Public Works because they have been going out and picking them up, especially on State Highway 182 is terrible.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a dump site, and every time I've called them, they've been responsive and going out, and so I'd like to thank them for that, and hopefully we can get this litter thing resolved over time.
Yeah, we have, for some reason, people are throwing everything all over the place. I mean, televisions and mattresses and washing machines. I mean, it's just all over. And keep in mind, you're going to see in the proposed operating budget where we're down some 15 people from where we were, just a few years ago. So we're trying to do this work with less. We're doing the work. It's just that I don't think we have enough people in Iberia Parish to follow the people that's throwing trash all around this parish. So with that said, we are on it.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to consent agenda items. Minutes, regular minutes of September 12, 2018. Summary number 164, introduced by Parish President, resolution granting partial substantial completion to the 2017 Briarwood Bridge replacement project. All is completed by Get Grade Construction Corporation as recommended by project engineer Wayne M. Labiche Engineering LLC. Summary number 165, introduced by the clerk of the court, a resolution proclaiming the month of October 2018 as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Iberia Parish. Is there any of the three items in the consent agenda anyone wants to pull out? Seeing none, I have a motion by Mr. Gonsalas. I have a second by Mr. Olivier. Roll call. Just 4 And Mr. Napier stepped out, and that motion passes. So now we're on to ordinances, summary number 4930, introduced by Zoning Commission, an ordinance approving the reclassification request of Laura Jarez for property located in the 3500 block of Leonce Terrio Road from R1 Single Family Residential to R2 Mixed Residential located in District 3. All is reviewed and recommended by the Zoning Commission. I have a motion by Tommy Landry. I have a second by Michael Landry. Tommy Landry? Michael Landry. Roll call. Okay, begin voting. That motion passes. Resolution, summary number 163, introduced. Yeah. Tommy, would you like to revote? Okay. Okay, so that motion passes. Summary number 163, introduced by legal counsel, a resolution authorizing
Excuse me, Mr.
employment.
Landry, you can skip that because that relates to the matter that we're moving to.
Okay, so we're gonna skip 163. We're going on to summary 166, introduced by the clerk of the council. The resolution appointing one member to the Iberia Parish Hospital Service District Number 1 Board for a 4-year term to fill the vacancy created by the expiration of the term of Mr. Leonard Menville, whose term expires November 25th, 2018. Appointment applications received from A. Leonard Menville, B. Mary Taylor, and C. Ernest Wilson. No motion. Okay, start your voting on your district pads. Okay, we will have Mr. Trahan recusing himself for this vote. Everyone else?
Recusal? Just want to make sure it's documented. You heard me?
All right, get your pencils ready. Here we go. District 1, Ernest Wilson. District 2, Ernest Wilson. District 3, Ernest Wilson. District 4, Ernest Wilson. District 5, Ernest Wilson. District 6, Lynn Menville. District 7, Lynn Menville. District 8, Menville. District 9, Mary Taylor. District 10, Ernest Wilson. District 11, Lynn Menville. District 12, Ernest Wilson. District 13, recuse himself, no vote. And District 14, Mr. Wilson. Okay, Mr. Menville had 4 votes, Ms. Taylor had 1, and Mr. Wilson has 8 votes. So Mr. Wilson is now reappointed to the hospital board. And now we'll go on to summary number 167, introduced by the clerk of the council, a resolution appointing one member to the Iberia Parish Hospital Service District Number 1 Board for a 4-year term to fill the vacancy created by the expiration of a term of Mr. Ernest Wilson, whose term expires December 29, 2018. Applicants received from Leonard Menville, B. Mary Taylor, and C. Ernest Wilson, but Mr. Wilson will not be in this voting. So use your district pads again.
Chairman?
Yes,
I'm
Mr.
recusing
Trahan?
myself from this vote.
Okay, so we'll have Mr. Trahan excusing himself. Okay, here we go. District 1, Taylor. District 2, Mary Taylor. District 3, Mary Taylor. District 4, Mary Taylor. District 5, Lynn Menville. District 6, Lynn Menville. District 7, Lynn Menville. District 8, Lynn Menville. District 9, Mary Taylor. District 10, Mary Taylor. District 11, Lynn Menville. District 12, Lynn Menville. 13 is Rick Cusin, and District 14, Mary Taylor. Okay, with 14 council, we have to have 8 votes. And we have Mr. Menville with 6 votes and Ms. Taylor with 7, so we're gonna have a re-vote again. Use your district pads. Okay, District 1, Mary Taylor. District 2, Mary Taylor. District 3, Mary Taylor. District 4, Mary Taylor. District 5, Lynn Menville. District 6, Lynn Menville. District 7, Lynn Menville. District 8, Lynn Menville. District 9, Mary Taylor. District 10, Mary Taylor. District 11, Lynn Menville. District 12, Lynn Menville. 13 is a no vote. And District 14 is Mary Taylor. So we have Lynn Menville with 6 votes and Mary Taylor with 7, and District 13 is no vote. Use your district pads again. Okay, District 1, Mary Taylor. District 2, Mary Taylor. District 3, Mary Taylor. District 4, Mary Taylor. District 5, Lynn Menville. District 6, Lynn Menville. District 7, Lynn Menville. District 8, Lynn Menville. District 9, Mary Taylor. District 10, Mary Taylor. District 11, Lynn Menville. District 12, Lynn Menville. District 13 is no vote, and District 14 is Mary Taylor. Okay. 6 votes for Mr. Menville and 7 votes for Ms. Taylor and 1 no vote. Use your district pads again. Okay, District 1, Lynn Menville. District 2, Mary Taylor. District 3, Mary Taylor. District 4, Mary Taylor. District 5, Lynn Menville. District 6, Lynn Menville. District 7, Lynn Menville. District 8, Lynn Menville. District 9, Mary Taylor. District 10, Mary Taylor. District 11, Lynn Menville. District 12, Lynn Menville. 13 is a no vote, and District 14 is Mary Taylor. Okay, on this vote, we had Lynn Menville with 7 votes, Mary Taylor with 6, and 1 no vote with District 13. Go ahead and use your district pads again. Okay, here we go. District 1, Lynn Menville. District 2, Mary Taylor. District 3, Mary Taylor. District 4, Mary Taylor. District 5, Lynn Menville. District 6, Lynn Menville. District 7, Lynn Menville. District 8, Lynn Menville. District 9, Mary Taylor. District 10, Mary Taylor. District 11, Lynn Menville. District 12, Lynn Menville. 13 is a no vote, and District 14 is Mary Taylor. Okay, the results of that is Lynn Menville, 7 votes, Mary Taylor, 6 votes, and 1 no vote from District 13. Use your district pads again. Mr. Reshort, if we go on for a little while, we might order Domino's Pizza and help fix our roads.
I'm telling you.
Okay, here we go. District 1, Lynn Menville. District 2, Mary Taylor. District 3, Mary Taylor. District 4, Mary Taylor. District 5, Lynn Menville. District 6, Lynn Menville. District 7, Lynn Menville. District 8, Lynn Menville. District 9, Mary Taylor. District 10, Lynn Menville. District 11, Lynn Menville. District 12, Lynn Menville. District 13 is a no vote, and District 14 is Mary Taylor. Okay, on this vote, we have Mr. Lynn Menville with 8 votes, Mary Taylor with 5, and 1 no vote with District 13. So, Mr. Lynn Menville, you'll be reappointed to the hospital board. I appreciate all of y'all applying and working. This is one of the toughest things to try to do, is to get the right people appointed to the board. So we appreciate everybody contributing. Summary number 168, introduced by the clerk of the council, a resolution appointing Mr. Eddie Craychant to the Iberia Parish Sewer District Number 1 Board for a 5-year term to fill a vacancy created by the expiration of term for Mr. Eddie Craychant, whose term expires December 27, 2018. Do we do a motion? Okay, we have a motion by Tommy Landry and a second by Mr. Gonsalam. Mr. Landry? Gonsalam? Roll call. And that motion passes. And just for the record, Mr. Michael Landry abstained. That's his brother-in-law. So summary number 169, introduced by the clerk of the council, a resolution appointing one member to the Iberia Parish Airport Authority Commission for a 5-year term to fill the vacancy created by the expiration of the term of Mr. Chuck Crochet, whose term expires November 23, 2018. Appointments, applications received from A, Raymond J. Bernard Jr., B, Ryan Bourne, and C, J. Barton Broussard. Mr. Andy Shealy, you have the floor. I have a motion by Ms. Broussard, a second by Mr. Gonsalam.
Yeah, I requested Mr. Shealy to come prepared tonight to give us an opinion on whether or not employees of tenants of the airport authority are eligible to be appointed to the airport authority. So I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Shealy.
Okay.
Actually, I listened to both Mr. Bernard and Mr. Bourne speak. Mr. Bernard indicated that he was the president of AVAX and an employee of AVAX. Mr. Bourne indicated that he worked for Bristow and was an employee. Both AVAX and Bristow were tenants at the airport. Mr. Watney and myself and Mr. Duplantis have tried desperately not to render opinions regarding ethics matters because they don't always make sense. And I just want to briefly talk to you about something because I want everyone to understand that the purpose of the ethics code is to prevent public employees from becoming involved in conflicts of interest. And a public officer, which is a member of a board or commission or the council, don't necessarily have to do anything wrong, but just because they're in a certain class of people, they can find themselves in an ethical issue. Not only is it sometimes the public servant that gets fined, but it's also his or her employer, or family member. And so I want you to understand that what the code is aimed at doing is trying to avoid even the appearance of a conflict. And a conflict is really when you have to serve two masters, and you can begin to think about the fact that, and I won't even use either one of them, but let's just assume that I have a contract with the airport or any other entity, and or my employer does, and so I get a paycheck from my employer, and all of a sudden an issue comes up about that particular incident. Well, you know I'm going to have some loyalty to my employer because that's where I pick up my paycheck. I have a loyalty to the entity because I serve on that board, and so what the ethics board is trying to do is to keep you from finding yourself in a position where you have that particular conflict of interest. And clearly there are a number of cases in which it's clearly set forth that a public servant's prohibited from receiving anything of economic value. A salary would be something of economic value from any person who has a contractual relationship with the public servant's agency. So in other words, in this particular instance, it would be against the Code of Ethics for an employee of a tenant at the airport to serve on that board, because they would have to serve, they have run the possibility of serving two masters, and you can understand that. And so a public servant simply cannot participate in a transaction in which actual knowledge, in which he has actual knowledge that his employer has a substantial transaction with the agency. Now, it was mentioned that, well, I can recuse myself. Well, unfortunately, recusals are only available to elected officials, not appointed officials. And so you don't have the benefit of being able to recuse yourself. Now, I'm not the Board of Ethics. The Board of Ethics is who renders these opinions. If anyone wishes to ask for an opinion from the Board of Ethics, that certainly is acceptable. However, I will tell you this, that I didn't trust my own work. I didn't trust Mr. Watney and Mr. Duplantis. All three of us looked at this, and then we called the Board of Ethics, and the Board of Ethics, orally at least, without doing a public opinion, was of the same thought that it would be a violation of the Code of Ethics. And so I think that if either one of the gentlemen wished for us to seek an opinion, we certainly could, but there was no hesitation when I talked to the attorney at the Board of Ethics today about that particular issue. So that's the background I can give. No, just the two that are employed, the two that are employed by tenants at the airport.
Okay. Well, Ms. Broussard, you still have the floor.
Yeah, and just to follow up, it's not only the issues that come up that obviously directly affect their employers that we have to take into consideration, but you know, what if the airport is trying to recruit a competitor of one of their companies, or things like that that might indirectly affect their employers. I just think we need to be very, very careful, because we could really get in a trick bag if we start appointing employees of tenants of the airport. As much as I think they have a lot to offer and valuable information, I think we're setting somebody up for a problem. So I'll yield.
Okay, next is Mr. Gonsalas.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have three incredible talents applying for this position, and as an elected official, I sure don't want to make a decision that would jeopardize either the parish or the airport authority as a whole. And you know, when we put our hand on that Bible, when we sworn in, and we've sworn to follow the rules, state and regulation statutes, and the ethics board is one of the binding contracts that we must follow as an elected official. And with the opinions that our legal advising team has given us, we need to be optimistic and awfully careful with disappointment, and make sure we do it right.
Mr. Dugan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. When you use the word like tenant right there, that raises some concerns of mine, or questions, I should say. If I remember right, the last guy we put on the airport board was a tenant because he had a hangar. What makes him any different than other these guys?
Mr. Dugas, there is a specific section in the code that, as to the Acadiana Regional Airport, says that anyone, and you're talking about the person that owns or that is the tenant himself, he may participate as long as his rent is the same rent as that charged to everyone else. So you take Lemaire, for instance, because that's the way, it's easiest to understand there. Lemaire has a bunch of T-hangars. And so if everybody in those T-hangars are able to rent those T-hangars at $10 a square foot, for instance, they're all treated the same. There's a specific exception for that situation, but not for those. And you're right, they actually got an ethics opinion in 2009 on that particular appointment. And the ethics board said because of that particular exception, there was not a problem. I pointed that exception out to the Board of Ethics today, and they felt, as I did, there was a difference between someone who's receiving something of economic value from the tenant versus someone who is actually the tenant themselves.
Okay.
And the real estate occupied by both Avex and by Bristow are not your typical hangar that you can simply go say, well, we're gonna rent all of those for $10 a heated square foot. They're all kind of specialty matters, and so it's a little bit more difficult even for them to even be able to fall under that exception, because it's not like something that's cookie cutter, treats everybody the same.
So the tenant in this case, if the rent were to go up in those hangars, he would have to recuse himself from that vote.
Well, the problem is, he's not elected official. He can't, there is no provision for appointed officials such as themselves to recuse themselves and get out of this box. Their problem is they receive something of economic value, a salary, from somebody that does business with the agency.
Okay, I got you. Thank you.
Next up is Mr. Napier.
It's just a shame, because I'm like everybody else. We have three fine gentlemen that want to serve, and surely, Andy, I understand, and quite capable. I understand what you're saying. So if that's the case, so if Mr. Bernard and Mr. Ryan Bourne, obviously, we shouldn't even vote, I would guess, Andy. I mean, I'm just trying to anticipate what you're saying. Should we open this back up to the public for, open it back up?
That's a decision for y'all to make. If you feel that having only one candidate is not a good idea, then you certainly could open it up. If you feel that you have enough qualified candidates to make a decision, you certainly could do that too. I don't want to have Mr. Bernard or Mr. Bourne, either one, to get in a situation where they end up with an ethical problem, and that ethical problem might also affect their employer too. I don't think they want to be in that position. So my comments really are just addressed to those who are employed by someone who is a major tenant at the airport.
Okay, well, I'll yield to, but I mean, me personally, Paul, if we can't vote, I would like to entertain the thought of opening it back up and let the public.
Okay, let's finish the rest of the Ms. Broussard.
I don't see any reason to open it back up. I mean, we've already advertised it. It's not like anybody knew ahead of time who their competitors were or who else was applying for the position. So if there was anybody else that was interested, I mean, they would have applied, and then we'd have 5 or 6 people. So, Andy, would it be appropriate for us to do a amendment to this motion to just appoint Mr. Barton Broussard and take a vote on that amended resolution?
That is certainly an action you could take.
I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, before I take that motion in second, Mr. Raymond had raised his hand. If you want to come to the podium. I'm coming.
Again, Raymond Bernard. I reached out to the ethics board, and they will not offer a rendering on the request that I had. Obviously, Mr. Shealy has some more contact people that he can call there. Understanding his concern that is presented to you all, and knowing a lot of people on the board, I don't want to put the board in this predicament. I think I understand what he is saying. I can tell you that I would certainly vote with the best of my heart as to what would happen, but understanding the nature of it and knowing most of you on the board, I'm going to go ahead and pull my name off of that list.
Thank you,
Okay,
Mr.
thank
Bernard.
you very much. Mr. Ryan Byrne?
He's out too.
Bourne?
I agree.
Why don't you come up to the podium, state your name.
Hey everybody, Ryan Bourne again, and as disappointed as I am that I won't be able to collect that check for the for service to the board. I go. I mean, if you know, if the lawyer says it, you know, I've learned enough doing what I do to go with what the lawyer says. So that's fine with me too.
And I want to say, I wish we'd have been able to figure this out before the two of you went through all the efforts, because you all both put through so much effort to communicate with us and tell us all about you and what you had to offer. And we do have other boards, and we would love for y'all to serve on some other boards in the parish, and please consider it.
No worries, thank you.
Mr. Goshasan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I heard from Councilman Napier, and I would be an objection to that. I think our clerk advertised it properly, correct, in the public, and I think each of the gentlemen stepped up for it. Unfortunately, two aren't able to serve, but Mr. Broussard is, and I wouldn't think it wouldn't be fair if we wouldn't give it to him tonight. So if we will, I would support the substitution by Ms. Broussard. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You have anything to say? Do we need to take a substitute? Or do we go back to the original motion?
I don't think we need to substitute any longer since they withdrew, so we just go back to the original motion.
Okay, so we're gonna be on summary number 169, and Mr. Raymond Bernard and Mr. Ryan Bourne have withdrew, so we'll be voting on Mr. J. Barton Broussard. Go ahead and vote your voting machines. Tommy? And that motion passes. Mr. Barton is now on the...
Mr. Landry,
Yes,
could I just make one other comment before those gentlemen leave? Because this is, I think, brought to light an interesting concept. I think both of them obviously have the best intentions of wanting to serve to improve the airport. And as a result, if the tenants at the airport don't feel perhaps that they're getting heard, or maybe their ideas are not getting there, I would suggest they might want to address the Airport Commission and ask if they would consider appointing an advisory group of tenants who might be able to come forward and make suggestions and comment on things that may be happening there that they think that could bring about improvements or other things. Just a thought.
No, that's a good point. We could use that maybe on a few other points. So summary number 170, introduced by the clerk of the council, a resolution appointing Mr. Clement Landry to the Robert B. Green Memorial Building Board for the remainder of a 5-year term to fill a vacancy created by the expiration of a term for Mr. Paul Anthony, whose term expired May 28th, 2018. I have a motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Olivier. Mr. Brown? Okay, roll call. And that motion passes. Summary number 171, introduced by Eugene Olivier, Senior, District 10, a resolution authorizing travel expenses for Councilman Eugene A. Olivier, Senior, to attend the Gulf States, Counties, and Parishes Caucus Annual Meeting to be held on October 17th to 19th, 2018, in Point Clear, Alabama, at the approximate cost of $1,055 per attendee. Have a motion by Mr. Goshasan, a second by Mr. Olivier. Mr. Goshasan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I am in objection to Mr. Councilmember Eugene Olivier going to this. I think we heard earlier that it was a 3% decline in our home assessments or collections. So, I mean, at this present time, I mean, things aren't recovering like we thought they would, and we need to be good stewards up here. All departments are taking cuts. This is the benefit for us to stand up and do the same. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Olivier.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to entertain a substitute motion, please. All I would need is $400 for this particular conference. I managed to partner up with a councilman from the neighboring parish to share in the transportation costs, and I won't be staying the 3 nights. We'll be leaving the Friday afternoon. So just a two-night hotel cost.
Okay,
is all I'm asking for.
Before, and that's fine, before I take your substitute, I have Mr. Tommy Landry. I'll give him, Mr. Landry?
I'm good.
Okay. Let's see who we got. So now we have a substitute on the floor to change $1,055 to $400. I have a motion. I'm looking for a second. Mr. Tommy Landry? Is that you with the second? Okay. Any other discussion? Voting on the substitute for 400, roll call. Brown. Morty. And that motion passes. Okay, summary number 172, introduced by the clerk of the council, a resolution accepting the property valuations for real and personal property for 2018 as established by the Iberia Parish Assessor. I have a motion by Tommy Landry, a second by Michael Landry. Mr. Tommy? Michael? Roll call. Tommy? That motion passes. Summary number 173, introduced by the clerk of the council, a resolution accepting and approving the district's budget for fiscal year beginning October 1, 2018 through September 30th, 2019. All is recommended by the Iberia Parish Hospital Service District Number 1 Board of Commissioners. I have a motion by Ms. Broussard, a second by Mr. Napier. Ms. Broussard.
Yeah, I'd like to amend the motion to say that we're only accepting it and we're not approving it.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor that we are going to strike the words and approving, and it'll say a resolution accepting the district's budget. I have a second by Mr. Napier. Mr. Napier, are you okay with that?
Yeah, she read off my paper.
I bet there wasn't a whole bunch of people in school that read off your paper.
No, it's
Okay.
Now that was ugly, wasn't it? Huh? Was that ugly? I wish Mary would.
Okay.
Myself from this vote.
Okay, Mr. Trahan, you have the floor.
I recuse myself from this vote.
Okay, we have Mr. Trahan that's going to be recusing himself from the vote. No further discussion. Roll call on the substitution. Tommy Napier. Okay, that motion passes. The substitute, summary number 174, introduced by the parish president, a resolution ordering and calling a public hearing to be held on November 28, 2018 for public comments for the proposed consolidated budget statement for 2019. I have a motion by Ms. Broussard, a second by Michael Landry. Ms. Broussard?
Waive.
Michael Landry?
Waive.
Okay, no further discussion. Roll call. Tommy? Just ended it. Yeah. Okay, that motion passes. Summary number 175, introduced by Chad Mathurin, District 14, a resolution amending resolution number 2011-61, adopted March 9, 2011, which approved the list of parish drainage canals to be sprayed, ditches, and channels as listed in order to remove Swallow Road from the spray list and further to add same to the grass cutting list. I have a motion by Mr. Mathurin, a second by Ms. Broussard. Mr. Mathurin? Ms. Broussard?
Waive.
Roll call. That motion passes. Summary number 176, introduced by Paul G. Landry, District 7, a resolution in support of Seadrill America Incorporated application to the Foreign Trade Zones Board for a subzone site within Foreign Trade Zone 124, and this is a routine administrative action. Have a motion by Ms. Broussard and a second by Mr. Gosselin. Ms. Broussard?
I think everybody's probably got information on that. I'm going to just turn it over to Mr. Romero if anybody has any questions for
Ms.
him.
Craig, would you want to come up to the podium if your voice
I
carries?
can in case anybody has any questions.
Okay.
I've tried, thank you very much for bringing it up. I've tried to meet with each and every one of you to talk about what I know about it. And I've been at the port 4 years, been in public office for 25, and this is probably one of the biggest things I've been involved in to try to help stimulate the economy in Iberia Parish going forward. And I really appreciate the response I've gotten from you guys and gals in terms of listening to what it's all about, because it's something different. The Port of Iberia today is not what it was for the last 40 years. We have to repurpose that property because fabrication is not the game of the day. Fabrication in the Gulf of Mexico on the shelf is pretty much non-existent. The few jobs we're getting fabrication related are pretty much bolting on together. There's no cutting and fitting like what has happened over the last 40 years at the Port of Iberia. So this is an opportunity to bring a very large company to the Port of Iberia that spent over $1 billion just last year fixing the parts and pieces to their drill ships that are all over the world, and they're going to do it here. And the fact that they're interested to come here just really gets me excited. And I know when y'all met with me, y'all could see it. Pretty much, it gets me going. So I'll be happy to answer any questions y'all might have relative to what I've talked about. Again, thank y'all very much for coming. Larry came to first meeting when these people came from Houston to talk, and he had their interest level peaked by the things that he said, and that's why, you know, having him there, because they've had situations in other areas. They want to make sure the deal is for real, and what you're doing tonight is the first giant step in making the deal a real deal for them. And they're going to be so excited to get this. And the school board meeting is October 3rd. October 12th, I go to LaPlace, to the Port of South Louisiana, to submit what you're going to pass here tonight, hopefully, and the whole process starts. It takes 5 months to establish a foreign trade zone, and they have Bayrod Transportation in their yard this week valuing the cost of moving all their equipment to the Port of Iberia. And it's about in the neighborhood of $1 million just to move what they have to our facility. So it's exciting. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. That's it in a nutshell.
Okay, if you just hang on right there, Ms. Broussard.
We look forward to them coming and hopefully stimulating some other economic development here. So thank you for your hard work.
Thank you,
Mr. Tommy Landry.
Greg, is this the entire port that will be considered? Or is it
No,
at
just the land that this company wants to lease, and it's between 50 to 60 acres. It could go as much as 80 of the 100 acres we're buying from Goldman Sachs. But it's just site-specific to their real estate. No one else is eligible, and it's only because they need that, because all of their rigs in foreign countries, and the parts will be brought in internationally and shipped back to the foreign countries. But they'll be repaired here in Iberia Parish.
Also, is the, you said we're going to purchase, the port is going to purchase, and is that state-funded money?
Yes, the port fund that is in the Department of Transportation referred to as the Port Priority Fund, where we're buying this 100 acres that was foreclosed by Goldman Sachs 3 years ago. We're buying it for $5.5 million, and the state of Louisiana will reimburse the port. We have to write the check and put the money up, but within 3 years, we get 90% of that $5.5 million back. And on top of that, we've applied for $10 million to make improvements to all those buildings, which are 40 years old. They were built by McDermott in the early 1970s. So we're going to spend another $10 million making substantial improvements to all the facilities to really make it presentable.
And when would that $10 million become available?
Oh, it's been approved, Tommy. I've applied, and that's the neat part. We go on to Baton Rouge, we're going to come back with $15 million. Well, within 3 years, we get 90% of the $15 million. It's over $15 million, between 15 and 16. But they've approved it already. I've been working on it for a while, but I wanted to make sure we could get our lock on the money. I don't want to go chase a rabbit unless I got shells in my pocket. So
my only concern is they start pulling strings in Baton Rouge, and how they reel that stuff back in.
No, yeah, I know. Don't worry. I'm glad.
That's my big concern, like they've done on the tourist.
I've been there a few
hotel,
times.
motel
I know how they
tax and all
play.
that,
times.
Anyway.
No, that's the neat part about it all. It's other people. It's our money. It's our tax money, but we go and grab it, and we're going to come to Iberia Parish and try to stimulate the economy.
Okay, next, Michael Landry.
Craig, how long that trade zone is in effect for? Is that a limitation or?
As long as they want it, they have to pay certain annual maintenance costs to the Port of South Louisiana to maintain. It's like $4,000 application, and they pay the Port of South Louisiana $13,000 a year to help them submit their reports. They have to report on a daily and a weekly basis to the customs agency, the federal agency, and they come and spot check all of that. They audit it on a regular basis to make sure it's going internationally and it's not being used domestically. Because they have 2 rigs in the Gulf out of 51, and those 2 rigs are all taxable.
What we're doing here for the foreign trade is they're not eligible for those parts and pieces that go on those 2 rigs. They predict by 2020 they will have 10 of those drill ships in the Gulf of Mexico. They're predicting that type of activity in the deep water Gulf of Mexico. So we'll get a lot more tax money as we go down the road, but right now there's only 2.
Okay.
Thank you, Tommy.
Mr. Gonsalas.
Yeah, and in the spirit of cooperation, as only one entity that has to vote on this, I'm going to request for a unanimous second on the name of Iberia Parish Economic Development.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Broussard, I believe. Had the motion, second by Mr. Gonsalas, unanimous second. Roll call. Tommy. That motion passes.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you, Mr. Craig.
I'll keep y'all posted.
Tell the company we're excited about having them come.
Thank y'all. 174, I had a little vote. I'd like to change that vote to
You got to offer reconsideration.
Show this, no vote.
yeah. I want to change that, yeah.
What's the process?
You'd have to do a motion and reconsider, and we'll have to pay all kinds of publication fees. Just publicly announce you support it.
Marty, your peeps know how you want it to be, so we good. Okay, we're going back to
Doesn't
special
matter.
business number 2.
It is.
Executive session pursuant to LARS 4217-2 regarding a demand letter related to the Paul Segura Parkway Estes Road Sewer Project for discussion and to discuss the hiring of special counsel. Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Broussard, and I have a second by Mr. Mathurin to go into executive session. Any discussion? Roll call. Mr. Brown, Tommy, Marty? Okay, that motion passes. We're now going into executive session. Okay, then I gotta go back to 69. Okay, we're gonna be going to, we're gonna need the whole motion by Ms. Broussard, a second by Mr. Gonsalas to come out of executive session. Roll call. Brian? Vote yeah. Okay, that motion passes. We're now out of executive session. Now we're going to go back to summary number 163, introduced by legal counsel, a resolution authorizing the employment of special counsel to respond to a demand letter related to the Paul Segura Parkway Estes Road Sewer Project, all in accordance with Section 9-01, Special Counsel, and 9-02, Legal Counsel of the Iberia Parish Home Rule Charter, and further amending the 2018 Risk Management Fund budget in the amount up to blank to provide funding for said council, and all to be funded from the fund balance previous year's line item, note tabled from the September 12th Iberia Parish Council meeting, amount to be determined during discussion. I have a motion by Mr. Gonsalas, a second by Ms. Broussard. Mr. Gonsalas?
A substitute motion to, for $20,000 to be appropriated for this particular instance.
Okay, Ms. Broussard?
Yeah, I think we also need to put the name of the special counsel, Alan Gooch, in there. That's okay with the mover.
I'm good.
Okay, we have a substitute motion to add the 20,000 and add the special counsel that's going to work for us. Any further discussion? Roll call. And that motion passes. Motion to adjourn by Mr. Gonsalas. Roll call. Yeah. Begin voting.
I'm voting for you to adjourn.
Okay. Berwick, Marty? Just go ahead and end it. That motion passes.